The rain hadn't stopped since morning, painting the city in shades of gray that matched Eleanor Vance's mood perfectly. At 39, Eleanor was the kind of woman people respected but never approached casually. As the CEO of one of the largest tech corporations in the country, she was known for her brilliance, her iron discipline, and her impenetrable emotional armor. Her days were planned to the minute, her heels clicking purposefully through marble floors, her voice never rising above calm authority. Her assistants feared her, her partners admired her, and journalists labeled her the Ice Queen of Silicon. Square, but inside the walls of her penthouse, after the city's lights dimmed, silence was her only companion. No husband, no children, no family photos on the mantel. Just echoes. So when the boardroom lights turned off at 7 p.m. and Eleanor stepped into her luxury sedan for the ride home, she didn't expect her life to swerve into something entirely unfamiliar. It began at a red light near downtown, where a small girl stood alone on the sidewalk under a broken umbrella, her clothes soaked, her shoes 2 sizes too big. Eleanor barely noticed her until the girl knocked softly on the window, eyes wide, cheeks flushed with cold. Her driver, startled, was about to wave her off, but something in the girl's face made Eleanor lower the glass. I'm sorry, ma'am. The little girl stammered, maybe 7 or 8, her voice barely a whisper. I don't have a mama. ... Can I call you that? D's for today. The question, absurd and innocent, pierced through Eleanor's mental defenses like a lightning bolt. She blinked, confused, the words hanging between them like fragile crystal. Where are your parents? She asked, her voice more gentle than she intended. I don't know where Daddy went, the girl said, looking down. And Mama, she went to heaven. I just wanted to spend a day, just one day, pretending I'm not alone. Eleanor could have told her to go to the police, to a shelter, to a million safer options. But something about the child's quiet dignity, the trembling of her fingers, and the desperate restraint in her eyes, like she'd learned too young not to ask for too much, stopped her. Get in, she said quietly, and the driver opened the door. The girl, surprised and grateful, climbed in, clutching a small cloth bunny that was almost falling apart. Eleanor didn't speak much on the way home. She didn't ask more questions. Her mind was spinning in directions it hadn't in years. In her penthouse, sleek and cold like her public image, the girl walked in timidly, glancing around with awe. Is this where queens live? She whispered. It looks like the sky. Eleanor smiled faintly. It's just home. Her a towel and warm clothes from an old charity box she hadn't touched in years. And the girl beamed. thanking her with eyes too big for her face. They sat on the couch with mugs of hot cocoa Eleanor hadn't made since college, and slowly the child began to speak. Her name was Lily. Her mother died of cancer the previous winter. Her father, overwhelmed and broken, vanished 2 weeks ago. Since then, she'd been sleeping behind the bakery where her mom once worked, surviving on leftover bread and the kindness of strangers. "I just wanted to feel safe for one night," she whispered, eyes welling up. Eleanor felt something break inside her wall, maybe. Or the last strand of resistance she'd carefully built over years of choosing work over warmth. She reached out, hesitated, then pulled Lily gently into her arms. "Just for today," she whispered back. "You can call me Mama." The girl clutched her tightly, and in that moment, Eleanor realized something that would haunt her like terror. Later, this wasn't pretend for either of them. It was real as the warmth returning to her soul. The night passed with bedtime stories read by a woman who hadn't spoken aloud to anyone outside of meetings in years, and dreams shared by a child who'd only known loss. Eleanor sat by Lily's side until she fell asleep, brushing back curls. From her damp forehead, a lump in her throat she couldn't swallow. She stayed in that room long after, wondering what fate had placed this girl in her path. It was only supposed to be for one night, but deep down she already feared letting her go. Morning sunlight spilled into the room like a quiet blessing. Brushing gently against Lily's sleeping face, while Eleanor sat silently on the edge of the bed, staring at the child with an expression that hadn't graced her face in years' tenderness. It had been decades since she'd even allowed herself to imagine a child in her home, let alone feel one small hand rest against hers in the middle of the night. But there was something about Lily that shattered her emotional solitude, like fragile glass beneath an unstoppable force. As the little girl stirred and opened her eyes, she smiled. "Morning, Mama," she whispered before catching herself. I mean, just for today." Eleanor swallowed hard and managed a smile. "Morning, sweetheart." Hungry. Eagerly. And within moments, the CEO, who usually had her breakfast catered from a luxury service, was cracking eggs in the kitchen, fumbling through a recipe on her phone like an amateur cook on her first day. Lily sat on the high stool beside the marble counter, swinging her legs, talking about things that no child should have had to explain, like how she'd learned to fold newspapers into a blanket, or how to hide behind dumpsters when the streets got too cold. Eleanor listened, stunned and angry, not at the child, but at a world where someone so small had been so forgotten. After breakfast, she called her assistant, Dana, and canceled all her meetings for the day, much to Dana's shock. An emergency, Eleanor said softly, but offered no explanation. She spent the entire day with Lily visiting a bookstore to let her pick a storybook, buying her clothes that actually fit, and watching her light up like the sky when she saw her reflection in a new dress. "Do I look like a princess now?" Lily asked, spinning. Eleanor nodded. "You look like the bravest girl in the world." They spent the afternoon in the park, with Lily chasing butterflies and holding Eleanor's hand like she'd always belonged there. A photographer might tell me mistaken them for mother and daughter, one proud, one joyful, but beneath that surface was a clock ticking in Eleanor's mind, a voice whispering that she didn't know what would happen when the sun went down. "Where do you usually sleep?" Eleanor finally asked, gently. Lily looked away, behind the bakery on 7th. "But sometimes the man who owns the store tells me not to come back. So I wait until he's gone." Her voice trembled. "I don't want to go back." Eleanor didn't know the legal process for adoption. She didn't know what would happen if she called social services. But what she knew deep in her bones was that Lily couldn't sleep behind that bakery one more night. Would you want to stay here? Not just today?" Eleanor asked, her voice almost breaking. Lily looked up at her, eyes wide. "For more than a day, you mean forever?" Eleanor hesitated, afraid to promise something she wasn't sure she could deliver, but the truth came out anyway. "Yes, if you want that." The child nodded so fast her curls bounced more than anything. But as the sky darkened, reality came knocking. That evening, Eleanor placed a call to Child Protective Services, not to hand Lily over, but to inquire about guardianship. She was told, kindly but firmly, that an investigation would be required. They needed to locate the father, assess Eleanor's suitability, and until then, Lily would need to be placed in temporary care. Eleanor's voice cracked. "She has nowhere safe. She came to me." But regulations didn't bend for emotion. A social worker was dispatched to Eleanor's apartment by nightfall. Lily, sensing something was wrong, clung to Eleanor's hand the entire time. The worker, named Carla, was kind-eyed but firm. "We'll need to place her in a temporary group home until the inquiry is completed. I promise we'll make this as smooth as possible." "I don't want to go," Lily said softly, tears welling. "I'll be good. I won't break anything. I can help clean. Just please, don't make me leave." The desperation in her voice ignited something primal in Eleanor. "I'll be filing for emergency custody," Eleanor said quickly. "I'll cooperate with anything you need, but she stays here tonight. I'm not letting her spend one more night scared and alone." After some tense negotiation, and Eleanor calling a legal team at nearly 10 p.m., A temporary custody arrangement was granted for 72 hours. Carla left with a promise to return for a home study. As the door closed, Eleanor knelt down to Lily's level and cupped her face gently. "You're staying. You're safe. I promise." The little girl didn't speak, only hugged her fiercely, like she feared letting go would make it all disappear. That night, Eleanor didn't just read a bedtime story, she sang. A lullaby her own mother used to hum when she was small. Back before life had turned into endless ambition and cold victories. As Lily drifted off, Eleanor sat in the dark beside her, heart aching with a strange new hope and a fresh fear she hadn't known she was capable of, fear of losing someone she'd only just met. The next day, Eleanor did something unprecedented. In her career, she announced a 2-week leave of absence, citing personal matters. The media speculated wildly, but Eleanor didn't care. Her focus was solely on preparing for the investigation, turning her sleek, sterile home into something that looked like it belonged to a child, too. She had furniture delivered, bookshelves stocked, toys arranged neatly, night lights installed in every hallway. But even with the preparations, she couldn't prepare for the emotional storm that loomed when Lily looked up at her one afternoon, fidgeting with a crayon, and asked, "If they take me away, will you forget me?" Eleanor's throat tightened. "Never. No matter what happens, you'll always be in here," she said, pressing the child's hand to her chest. "You changed everything, Lily." The girl leaned in, eyes full of fragile hope. "You changed me too, Mama." Eleanor held her, blinking back tears, terrified at how much love could bloom in just days, and how unbearable it might be to lose it. But even fear couldn't outweigh what she felt now, mourning undeniable truth. She needed Lily as much as Lily needed her. The day of the home inspection arrived with skies as overcast as Eleanor's nerves. The wind howling against the glass panels of her penthouse, as if nature itself mirrored the storm inside her heart. She had never prepared so meticulously for anything, not investor meetings, not global summits, not even the IPO that had once made her a household name. But none of that had ever been about love, and certainly never about a little girl whose laughter now echoed in every corridor of her once lifeless home. Lily, dressed in a soft pink sweater Eleanor had picked out for her, clutched her stuffed bunny and waited quietly on the couch, her legs dangling above the floor, eyes constantly darting to the door. "Do you think she liked me?" she asked. Eleanor knelt beside her. "She loved you." At exactly 10 a.m., Carla returned, this time with another social worker, a legal representative, and a clipboard filled with questions that felt like surgical incisions on Eleanor's carefully guarded soul. They asked everything: her reasons for not marrying, her emotional availability, her travel habits, her past, her intentions, her income sources, her criminal history clean, her childhood complicated, her parenting philosophy undeveloped, but instinctive, and most painfully, why she wanted this little girl in her life. Eleanor took a deep breath and said, "Because she reminded me that I have a heart, and because she deserves to grow up being loved, not lost." The answer hung in the air like a sacred truth, and even Carla's professional posture softened. They toured the home, noting safety features, age-appropriate spaces, hygiene, and food storage. Everything was perfect, most too perfect. What moved them most was the genuine bond they couldn't deny. When asked if she felt safe, Lily simply stood beside Eleanor, looked up at her, and whispered, "She's the only one who ever made me feel like I mattered." That evening, as they awaited the verdict, Eleanor tried to distract Lily with drawing and cupcakes. But the tension loomed like a dark curtain. She knew bureaucracy could be cruel. She knew sometimes the system didn't prioritize love. But she also knew that losing Lily would tear a hole in her that no success could ever repair. The phone rang at 6:17 p.m. Eleanor picked up with trembling hands. Carla's voice was calm but kind. "We've reviewed everything. Due to Lily's current status, her missing parent, and your exceptional care, the board has unanimously approved you for emergency foster custody with long-term adoption pending." Eleanor closed her eyes, exhaling as though the air itself had been trapped in her lungs for a lifetime. "Thank you," she whispered, barely believing it. She turned to Lily, tears already streaming. "You're staying forever, if you want." The girl gasped, dropping her bunny, running straight into Eleanor's arms. "You mean I get to call you Mama for real?" Eleanor laughed through her tears, hugging her tight. "You always could." That night, they didn't need stories or lullabies, only silence, only the rhythm of love finally spoken without fear. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Eleanor shifted her life to accommodate her new role, not reluctantly, but joyfully. Morning meetings moved too late. Afternoons. International travel became rare. She read parenting books late into the night, signed school papers with care, learned how to braid hair from YouTube, and even attended her first PTA meeting, awkward but proud. Lily blossomed in ways Eleanor couldn't have imagined. Her drawings turned from black and white stick figures hiding behind boxes to colorful scenes of sunshine and homes with hearts in the windows. She started calling Eleanor Mama without hesitation, and eventually, without the fearful glance to make sure it was still okay. Eleanor, in turn, learned to let go of perfection. There were burnt pancakes, mismatched socks, paint on the couch, and tears after school fights. But every challenge only made her more certain that this was the life she never knew she needed. Then one evening, 6 months after Lily entered her world, a letter arrived. It was from Lily's father. Somehow, he had heard through local shelters and outreach workers that Lily had been found and placed with a guardian. The letter was scribbled in messy handwriting, full of regret and grief. "I never meant to leave her," he wrote. "I just didn't know how to stay after her mother died. I was broken. But if she's safe, and if she's happy, maybe I can stay gone. Just tell her I love her, and that her mama would be proud." Eleanor sat with the letter for hours before finally telling Lily about it. "He's not coming back?" Lily asked, not with anger, but with the calm sadness of someone who had already made peace with too much loss. "Not now," Eleanor said. "Okay. But he wanted you to know he loves you." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she looked up and said, "That's okay. I already have a mama now." From that day on, Eleanor framed the letter and placed it in Lily's room, not as a reminder of abandonment, but as a quiet closure. Time passed. Lily grew stronger, braver. She made friends. She danced in the kitchen. She snuck cookies before dinner. On the day the adoption was finalized, she wore a little white dress and asked if they could go out for ice cream. Eleanor said yes, even though she had a meeting. "You're the meeting today," she said, smiling. At the courthouse, the judge asked Lily if she wanted Eleanor to be her forever mom. Lily didn't hesitate. She already is. That night, after the celebration and balloons, Eleanor tucked her in, as always, but Lily reached out and pulled her close. "You know what I prayed for that night I knocked on your window?" she asked. Eleanor smiled. "What, sweetie?" "I didn't pray for money, or a home, or even food. I just asked God to let someone see me." Eleanor's eyes welled up. "And I did." "Yeah," Lily whispered. "You saw me before I disappeared." Eleanor kissed her forehead. "You saved me, too, Lily, more than you know." And as the girl drifted off to sleep in the warm glow of her forever home, Eleanor sat by her side, whispering a promise she'd once been too afraid to make. "You'll never be alone again. Not for one more day." The woman once known as the Ice Queen now carried warmth in her arms every night, laughter in her halls every morning, and a love so deep it rewrote the very story of her life. All because a little girl had knocked on her window and asked the one question that changed everything. "Can I call you Mama just for today?"